Hi, everybody. I see it's the top of the hour and we still have a couple people joining. So we'll go ahead and give them just another minute to get dialed in. And while we're waiting, I just want to go ahead and thank everybody for joining us today for addressing the cybersecurity workforce shortage. Here in a minute, you'll hear from McMillan and Marcie Stout, both of our speakers today. And then I think just going ahead and introduce myself while we wait. I am Jana Langhorn. I'm the Senior Director of Marketing here at CynergisTek, and I'll be moderating today's webinar. And again, I want to thank everybody for joining us today. We look forward to having you on our webinar. And like I said, in just a minute, you'll hear from Matt McMillan, our CEO, and then Marcie Stout, who's a virtual CISO here at CynergisTek. And both of them will talk about some of the ways that healthcare organizations are addressing the shortage today. But before we get started, I want to quickly go over some housekeeping issues. So during and throughout the webinar, all the attendees will be on mute. However, at any time, you can ask a question using the questions panel over in the GoToWebinar control panel. And just to let everybody know, at the end of the afternoon today, you should be getting an email with the presentation and a recording so that you can have that and use it however you'd like. And then with that, I'm going to go ahead and introduce our first presenter, Matt McMillan. Like I said, he's joined here with me in the room today. He's our CEO and president at CynergisTek, and he has participated in several industry advisory boards. He's recognized as a HIMSS Fellow. He's the former chair of the HIMSS Privacy and Security Policy Task Force. He brings us over 40 years of combined intelligence, security, and consulting experience from both the government and the private sector. And he's considered a thought leader in compliance, security, and privacy issues in healthcare, and has been recognized as a top influencer in health information security. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Matt to get our discussion started today.
Thank you, Jana. Welcome everybody to our webinar today. And I am going to be joined by one of our senior information security consultants, who's one of our VCISOs. And I'm going to wait and introduce her in more detail just before she speaks, so that her background is fresh in your minds as you're listening to her talk about her experiences in helping some of our clients with their challenges and the things that she does to support folks. But before I do that, I want to get started our discussion, and this is probably the biggest issue that I think we have today in cybersecurity, and that is the shortage of people with the right expertise to be able to fill the roles that we have out there. And if you look at any of the surveys that get posted every year, this hole that we're in today, which supposedly is somewhere in the neighborhood of well over 1.5 million empty positions around the country where we have cybersecurity folks needed. That hole just seems to keep getting deeper and deeper as we have more and more need for this type of expertise. And it's worse now than it has ever been in the 40 years that I've been doing this. And back when I first started, we didn't have cybersecurity expertise or people or professionals. We literally had to take network engineers and then train them. And it took us literally usually 5 or 6 years to finally get somebody to a point where they were actually skilled enough to do the things that we needed them to do. The good news is today we have a few more resources available to us to help us get people ready to provide these kinds of services. But when you look at this issue, as I was saying, you know, this is a serious issue, and there is a serious shortage of talent out there. I don't care where you look today in whatever periodical you're looking at or survey or study that's done, they all come back saying the same thing, and that is that we have a shortage of people, and that shortage of talent in this area is beginning to impact organizations' ability to successfully do the things that they need to do to protect their systems and to protect their data appropriately, and they're beginning to see this as something that is really one of the issues contributing to a lot of the breaches that we're having out there and that we're going to have potentially in the future, and that if we don't do something about it, this situation is just going to get worse before it gets better. So when we look at this shortage, as I said before, the numbers, depending on what survey you look at, we're talking about 3.5 million here by the year 2021, which frankly is just around the corner. We're halfway through 2019, so we're literally looking at 18 months away. Over 600,000 positions this year alone are open or vacant, if you will, in the United States, where we don't have someone to fill those positions, and we know we have 100% employment rate in the cybersecurity market, which means everybody has a job. So in order for someone to fill a position, they have to take somebody away from somebody else, creating another opening. So it's really kind of a zero-sum game, if you will, in terms of how we're approaching this. Several studies out there talk about organizations and how people are feeling about this. It used to be one of the things that didn't get listed, and today it's becoming one of the top items listed by CIOs and CISOs around the country who are trying to find the resources to be able to do the things that they need to do. And at the same time, we're seeing our environment become more and more complex with respect to the threats that are out there. This year, we've seen a 78% increase in the supply chain breaches. These are the third parties that we all do business with and that we rely on to protect our data that we share with them for them to provide some service to us. And if you just look at the headlines for the last couple of weeks, we've had several major breaches announced by large health systems that were not their breach, but were the breach of one of the third parties that they're working with, I should say. There's other statistics you can look at these, whether it's the number of malware that keeps rising or the number of IoT devices that we're connecting to our environments, or what it's going to cost us. But the bottom line is that healthcare clearly is one industry out there that is a lucrative target for cyber criminals, which makes it even all the more important for us to have people that know what they're doing to help us protect our data and our systems. But we have another problem, and that is, frankly, that a lot of our employers don't appreciate this problem. They don't appreciate the magnitude of it. They don't appreciate the skill sets that are required to do this job effectively, and more importantly, they don't appreciate what it costs to get the right people with the right talent to be able to provide the right level of security that they're trying to attain. And if you look at some of these quotes, and I like the one where the guy says, don't want to be Chicken Little here, but the fact of the matter is, I think this shortage creates or represents a real serious threat to us in our goal to protect our data, because the bad guys are not slowing down, and they're not getting less creative themselves. They're actually getting more creative and coming at us faster and faster as we speak. And we have to have the right people with the right skills to be able to combat that. So we need a new approach. We need a paradigm shift, and I've been talking about this for years, and I hope that it's beginning to take hold, but I'm not quite sure. And that is one of the first things that we need to do is we need to redefine what it means to work in or with information technology. And what I mean by that is that we can't just rely on cybersecurity professionals by themselves to protect our environment anymore. And I think everybody knows that today. They know that this is not just a security issue. It's not just an IT issue. It's an organizational issue. But the problem is that we spend precious little time actually training or educating non-IT professionals on the things that they need to know to really be effective in recognizing and helping to prevent or avoid cyber incidents. And I think we need to change that. I think curriculums need to change in grade schools and colleges. I think they need to change in other professional fields. Anybody who's using a computer today ought to at least have the basic cybersecurity skills that they need to protect what they're doing and protect the system that they're using. And to be able to smartly identify when something's going on with that system that could be a dangerous situation or an anomalous situation that they can then report to those cybersecurity professionals in their organization that can help them with that. But we do need to change how we approach this. We also need to change the training that we give other IT professionals, because in many of our organizations, cybersecurity is an oversight function, or it's an audit function, or an assessment function. It's not a hands-on function, meaning the people who are actually managing the firewalls, managing the IDSs, managing the network segmentation systems, etc., are the network folks. And yet we don't provide them with security certifications or security training a lot of times with respect to the technologies that we're asking them to manage. And that's really putting them in a unfair position, and it's also putting the organization in a risky position. So we really need to think about the fact that anybody who's working with technology, whether they're a user or whether they're somebody in IT, needs to have a higher level of training and awareness around cybersecurity so that we can all hopefully do a better job of protecting ourselves. We need to increase educational focus and programs emphasizing diversity and approach. Right now, we have less than 2% of our IT workforce that are women, which to me is absolutely crazy. And it's one of the things that I emphasize a lot here at CynergisTek in terms of bringing young women, young ladies into the STEM world and into the cybersecurity sphere and career paths. And we need to do more to encourage our other folks to enter the STEM fields and enter cybersecurity and IT professional fields, because we're never going to fill this void if all we're going after are just young men that are out there, or focusing on just young men. We need to find ways to encourage other people, everybody, to go into this career path, and we need to provide the education for them to be able to get there. We also need leadership from Washington and greater funding for cybersecurity training and research. We have got to try to stay up with and keep pace with the bad guys, and we've got to bring more people into the sphere in terms of looking at these things and coming up with ways to keep us abreast of where we need to be from a protection perspective. And last but not least, we need to encourage private and public sector cooperation and initiatives. Companies can contribute to this as well. Companies can contribute in the form of programs. They can contribute in the form of programs for college kids to get experience while they're going through their curriculum. They can provide support for tuition assistance. There are all kinds of ways that the companies can contribute to creating the resources that we need to meet this need, and we need to find ways to help them do that and to encourage folks to do that. But while we wait for all of that, we also need to recognize that we have a job to do, and which means we have to try to protect where we are today. And this means that those of us that are out there on the front lines of doing this have got to be more creative in our approaches, and we have to understand that we're going to have to adopt more of a portfolio or hybrid approach to cybersecurity, meaning we are never going to have all of the cybersecurity expertise or professionals that we need likely in our organization, and we're going to have to partner with other folks and bring in other services and other resources and find other ways to fill those gaps. And how do we do that? Well, first thing, like I said, we need to change how we look at everyone in the system, not just the IT folks, but everybody out there who's using those systems. And we need to create a culture of security as a corporate responsibility, so that everybody from the people in my position as a CEO all the way down to the most junior analyst, if you will, or technician, understand that in their role they have a responsibility for helping us to protect our systems and our data. We need to provide opportunities for IT professionals in our organizations to earn cyber certifications. If we're going to have them managing security systems, then we need to give them the training to be able to do that effectively and at a standard that we're expecting. We need to enhance all user cyber education and awareness, and we need to put more emphasis on that with our users so that they can help us as well. And we all know that a lot of our attacks today are social engineering in nature, whether they're phishing attacks or some other type of attack. And they're not just attacks on our hardware or firmware, if you will. They're attacks on the people that are actually using those systems as well. We need them to be as smart as they can possibly be to try to avoid some of those incidents. And last but not least, we need to incorporate cyber education into all of our curriculum. Starting as soon as we hand someone a computer, we need to start teaching them at least the defensive skills associated with cybersecurity so that they understand how to be smart about how they use that computer and what they're seeing, and how to report when they see something that doesn't make a lot of sense. So what do I mean by partnering for success? Well, first of all, you need to think about what your purpose is when you're looking at a partner to help you solve your cyber challenges. What model are you interested in terms of the model? And there are various models out there. We'll talk about some of those in a second. And last but not least, what are the attributes of the person or people that you're looking to bring in from the outside or partner with that are important to you? So when you look at the models, right, there's outsourcing, there's co-sourcing, there's acquiring things as a service, and all of these are viable. But we need to think about what it is we're trying to do, what the intended purpose is, and whether or not it makes sense. Is this something we should do in-house? Is this something we should do with somebody so that we create a core competency in-house that we can then rely on and use our partner to augment our staff, or is this something that maybe makes more sense for somebody to provide to us as a service, because there's a level of expertise or a uniqueness about whatever it is that maybe goes beyond what is reasonable for us to try to build internal to our organization. There's also models in terms of that support. It could be virtual, meaning somebody who is not on site all the time, but is there and is available for some period of time throughout the year, or some period of time that is available to us to help us with our program and what we're trying to accomplish. It could be an interim placement where we basically bring somebody in to fill a role for some period of time, or to backfill somebody who we just lost that we're trying to fill ourselves and want to make sure that we don't have a vacancy there. Or it could be full-time support. Sometimes it makes sense in some areas where it's very difficult to recruit and to retain folks to actually hire those folks in a full-time staffing arrangement. And last but not least, there are models around mentoring, training, and advisory support, where you have a partner who is actually there to help mentor your folks or help provide advisory services to you. You don't need them all the time. You just need them when you need them. Or you have junior folks that need some experience, and you want to have someone senior to help you provide that. And what do I look for, or what do I think about when I think about these external resources that you might want to use? And I think back to the time when I was the director of security, the things that were important to me then and back then, it was that they had some level of awareness or knowledge of my industry, and my industry then, of course, was government. Today, for you, that's healthcare. So I want to bring, if I'm going to bring in an interim staff person or folks to support me, I'd like for them to have at least some level of experience with healthcare and some knowledge of healthcare, so that I'm not having to teach them everything that they need to know in order to be able to be effective in my environment. I want to make sure that they have some experience, meaning if they're going to be filling a vCISO role, I want to know that they've actually been a vCISO, or they've been a CISO somewhere else, if they have that experience, or if they're a network security engineer, or if they're doing some form of remediation or implementation. I want to know that they've had that experience, because when I'm bringing them in as a additional resource or somebody to augment my staff, I don't expect to have to train them. I want them to show up and be able to hit the ground running and be able to deliver value right away. I want to make sure that they've got the right expertise. So I want to make sure that the folks that I'm working with and that are providing resources to me are ensuring that the people that they're providing have their certifications and have experience that's related directly to what I'm looking for help with, so that they are creating value not only with respect to their experience but also their level of acumen in whatever it is that they do. I also want to know that there's support behind them, because a lot of times one of the reasons that I'm looking for an interim resource or a staffing resource is because I'm having trouble recruiting or I'm having trouble retaining. And so I don't want the person or the company that's working with me or the partner that's working with me that's providing resources to also be having those same issues or projecting those issues to me. So if I'm working with somebody, I want to know that the person that they have on site, if for some reason something happens to that individual, that they're able to backfill them right away, or they're able to backfill them with additional support from the organization that they came from, so that I don't experience the gap again that I had before. And last but not least, I want to know that there's some ROI involved in what we're doing. And a lot of times, depending on what the task is, sometimes when it's monitoring, sometimes when it's offloading a particular set of tasks from my plate to a partner, there are returns on investment that can be achieved, where I can actually take internal resources that I had that maybe perhaps weren't able to accomplish whatever it was that I was trying to do internally as well, and repurpose them elsewhere so that I actually get extra value from this relationship, so that I'm accomplishing whatever it is that I was trying to accomplish now with my partner, but I'm also being able to better utilize those resources that I had internally so that I get more value for my organization. So before we talk about those things in more detail, I'd like to talk about a couple things that I want you guys to just be aware of and know that these resources are out there, and perhaps encourage you to support these kinds of initiatives. So I want to talk about some of the long-term strategies that are out there to address this shortage first. One of the first ones is a program called the CyberPatriot program. This is a program that's sponsored by the Air Force Association, and it provides training and events for kids from K through 12. It's designed to get young people engaged and excited about STEM careers. And I've actually experienced and watched a couple of these camps, and these things are really neat. They teach the kids the defensive arts as it relates to cyber security. And today, I think, or last year, I think they were up to almost 4,000 camps nationwide. So a lot of young people are beginning to be introduced to cyber security through programs like this. And these are things that you can support yourself. You can support these camps at your schools, and you can provide, and they often look for IT professionals, especially cybersecurity professionals in the local area, to serve as mentors to these camps when they run them, so that the kids actually can interact with somebody who's in the field, in the profession, and hopefully get even more excited about perhaps a career in this area. And when you look at what they've accomplished, if you just look at how what this has meant, they do surveys of these kids when they come in to the program, and you can see the bars on the right with respect to what they said when they came in. And the CyberPatriot respondents were overwhelmingly leaning towards STEM careers or STEM degrees, if you will, when they go to college, whereas the national average of kids that are surveyed out there overwhelmingly are not. When you look at the higher education enrollment, meaning the kids who have actually been through this program and now have graduated from high school and are in college, what we see here is that exactly the same type scenario, meaning many of the kids that go through this CyberPatriot program actually go into STEM degree programs when they go into college, which hopefully will translate eventually to more people in this career field. This young man here is just one example of that. And if you look at the number of folks that actually go into a STEM career, 91% of the kids that go through this program have said that this program either somewhat or significantly influenced them on the career path that they've followed both in college and beyond. And this is just another couple of examples of people who have gone through the CyberPatriot program, young people who are now in college and have talked about how this program has contributed to their being excited about going into this career field and pursuing it as both a college education and a career. There's also other programs out there. The University of Texas has a certificate program that they're launching this summer for the first time. And this is a little different program, whereas the CyberPatriot program is designed to get young people excited about going into STEM careers. The University of Texas has taken a different approach, and they recognize, too, that we need more people in general involved in cybersecurity and aware of cybersecurity so that they'll be more effective workforce members. So they've started a certificate program for people that are in healthcare to get them more engaged. And the goals for this are several. To partner with industry, to impart knowledge of current threats, to teach critical problem-solving skills, to help these folks who are in other areas, other careers, move into healthcare, and as they move into healthcare, have an understanding of cybersecurity and privacy as part of their curriculum. They also are really focusing on individuals with diverse backgrounds, as well as going after second careers for our veterans. And so this is a program that hopefully will take hold, and hopefully we'll see more degree programs like this. This particular program, the University of Texas, like I said, is being launched this summer. It is available not only on site but online. And if you want more information about it, you can actually contact those folks through the website that was on that first slide and learn more about it. And I think it's an excellent program for folks in your organization that aren't in IT, aren't necessarily in cybersecurity, but are in healthcare fields and want to know more about cybersecurity as part of their professional education. And again, the whole purpose of this is to help create that cybersecurity pipeline that creates a broader understanding or awareness, if you will, of cybersecurity across the organization, and not just relying on cybersecurity professionals. And then, of course, we have our other degree programs that are out there, bachelor's and master's degrees in cybersecurity. And the good news is that there are more and more of these programs popping up across the country, more and more opportunities for young people and others to get degrees in cybersecurity and to expand their knowledge in this area. But we need, in my opinion, we need increased scholarship opportunities, both federal and private. We need industry support and collaboration with these institutions to help folks have these opportunities. Company tuition support or school loan forgiveness programs. We in fact do that for our folks here at CynergisTek because we want them to get these advanced degrees and expand their education and their value both to us and to our customers. Sponsorship for certificate programs for professionals like the University of Texas program or other programs, or support for cybersecurity training opportunities. There are things that we can do to help ourselves help solve this shortage. The good news is that today, literally every state in the union, to include the District of Columbia, has at least one university that's designated as a Center for Academic Excellence for Cybersecurity, meaning there is somewhere for folks to go to in every state in the union. Many of our states actually have multiple universities that have been designated and are receiving funding from the federal government to support these programs and to help produce more graduates with this level of knowledge. And with that, I'd like to introduce our next presenter. Marcie Stout joined CynergisTek last October, and since October, she has already worked with 7 hospital systems, and I understand she's about to inherit a couple more here soon. She is a senior information security consultant and one of our vCISOs. She has a solid resume of experience. As you can see here, she's been the information security officer at multiple organizations, both on the government and the private sector side. She's been a CISO as well. She has 20 years of experience in technology security and risk management. And I can tell you from interaction with the folks that have worked with her, that our customers, that she has a great reputation for being able to go in and quickly help folks with their programs. And so with that, I'd like to turn it over to Marcie and let her talk to you a bit about examples of what she has done and her fellow professional services group folks do, and the kinds of examples that she can share with you around using a partner to help you with your cybersecurity staffing needs. Marcie?
Thank you so much. Okay, you can flip slide. Thank you. The virtual Chief Information Security Officer solution is very robust and very malleable, but our goal of this program is to assist our customers in creating robust, measurable, and mature security programs. So if you have a need, we're able to come in, help you point to those strategic and tactical elements where you can show that growth, measure that growth, and grow into the program that you want. Some of the ways that we're able to come in and do the strategic guidance, the program development, we do many things that revolve around security governance. We do a lot of risk management program development, your overall security program. We do continuity planning and development. We mentor and advise staff. A lot of times we'll have staff who are in place. They're just not ready to go out on their own 2 feet and take the next step. So we're able to come in and help those folks grow and learn and be ready to support you when we leave. We also provide interim staffing. So in Mac referred to earlier, you have that hole that you need to fill, someone just left, or you're having difficulty finding the right person for the fit. We're able to go out, find that person for you with our wide reach, excuse me, and bring that person to you to help you fill that hole until you're able to find that candidate on your own. Next slide, please. Next slide, Jana.
There.
I think you have a little bit of a lag, Marcie, over there.
Oh,
Once you said one.
In our case study, our first case study, we have a large health system in California who has to try and compete with that Silicon Valley pay. So they have a difficult time recruiting. It's a hard time to keep staff. Retention is very low. So our goal for them is to find the right skill set, the right price, all those things that they have that difficulty doing. And you can see in the quote on the side, we've got finding the right skill set at the right price. The issue at its root is a cultural issue for CISOs and security staff. They don't give me the tools or support I need. They pay me less than I could make somewhere else. The organization doesn't value security or me, and I'm carrying an awesome responsibility. This is important to us because we're able to come in and help you fill those holes, fill that gap you have with qualified staffing folks who really care about the end result for you. Can you flip the slide for me? Next slide, Jenna. Thank you. The solution for this client was to provide multiple security engineers to support network remediation tasks and implementations of the enterprise-wide solutions. So we brought in engineers, architects. They were able to support the implementation of the Cisco ICE product there. They also were able to come in and support their PCI requirements for compliance. We did a complete set of network engineering work for them. We also were able to provide project management to guide the project as a whole, bring them into where they wanted to be with their security program. We also brought in several privacy consultants to support them. We had multiple interim privacy officers, and they had longer-term privacy analysts to support, staffing support. So over a longer term to work in tandem with that security force that we had there. So we covered them as a group in several areas. Next slide, please. In our second case study, our challenge was a regional independent nonprofit healthcare system needed a multifaceted assistance. They needed a multifaceted program so they could grow and mature their program in line with their corporate goals. They already had some security staff on the ground, privacy and security. They had a dedicated CIO. We were able to build out a plan for them and an approach that resulted in them having a 50% plus improvement in their risk assessment scores after the first year. Slide. So through collaboration with the CIO and their security director, we established a governance and organizational support that allowed them to expand their security program. In working with the CIO and their director, we were able to garner support from their board, which also allowed us to build out a strategic plan and provide tactical projects that supported those projects and also had that support at the top of the organization where it really mattered. So they got follow through, they got commitment, they were able to get buy-in at the top levels of their organization so they could follow change through the entire process. While we grew those strategic and tactical elements, we were also growing the existing security components, improving their maturity, and expanding the program so we can include new areas such as asset management, continuity planning and recovering, and enhancing their security training program. Those pieces of the solution were part of the plan that really achieved those improvement in scores for the next year. So it was the coming together of the entire plan and the entire program that really netted them the value there. And as a team, we were able to go in and help them build that out and show such a great success. Next slide. Our third case study is a 400-bed teaching hospital that has minimal security staff. They needed assistance in transitioning from a very task-oriented reactive program to a proactive environment with a program that was manageable for their limited staffing and their difficulties in retaining the staff that they did have. So to do this, we developed a small one-year plan to begin that transition from a very proactive posture to a more reactive posture. So we built that out slowly, and we're still taking baby steps to get there. But we took a review of what security projects and tools that they have in place. We were able to take that and then identify specific goals and targets that we needed to hit in order to get them to that next level. So we did a nice set of policy and procedure development for them to get that organization on every staff person, every CEO, everyone on a level playing field, all policy and procedure work so that we have buy-in and we had a leg to stand on. We built out that governance we built out the governance slowly as well. We developed a governance committee to oversee security work, privacy work, and compliance so that we could garner that additional support through the CEOs and director levels at that hospital. We also began documentation and development on all of the processes they had in place. They had many, many processes across security and IT as a whole, things that were being done but were not formally documented, and that also added to poor assessment scores. So as we began to flesh out that documentation and show what they really were doing, we're going to be able to pull from that and hopefully increase their assessment scores in some of those core areas next year. We also began work on vulnerability program development and implementation. And as a part of that, working on their SIM and their different elements of the program, even down to the recording, capturing, and tracking of the their actual vulnerabilities down to the patch management level. We're also working to see if their current state is proper, or do we need to take that transition and next step to a managed services state. So we've built out a lot of, here's what we're doing, here's what we need to do, and let's look even further to the next step of what is our perfect state. So being a team, the professional services group works as a whole to try and build that out for the client. Our fourth case study is a large public research university and medical center. They were struggling through several incidents, and an outsourced vendor had let them down. They had several challenges in compliance, privacy, and security that we needed to tackle. Next slide. At this client, we were able to provide interim and long-term staffing to a new CIO to support the interim CISO, security engineers, analysts, many remediation tasks associated with incident response. We were working on program development for their governance body, policy development, security training, vulnerability management, and so on. We also transitioned support from many of their staff over to what we were doing, and vice versa, back and forth. So we were able to work as a team to start building out all of those elements that they were lacking. We also provided an interim compliance officer, an interim privacy officer. We provided executive advisory support for incident response to help them start building out all of these processes from scratch so they will have a strong footing in the future. Next slide.
Okay, thank you, Marcie. So Marcie gave you several examples of areas where interim staff or interim support, whether it's a vCISO or a staffing resource or a security engineer or analyst in a remediation role, can help you to fill those gaps, whether it's short-term or longer-term or whether it's project-based, that can help you build out that portfolio or a hybrid approach to addressing cybersecurity in your organization and more importantly, the shortage that we're all facing out there. I also wanted to mention something that just came out this past week from the National Health ISAC, which is called the Healthcare Sector Council's Workforce Guide, which was just published, and it talks about strategies for enhancing your ability to attract, recruit, and retain cybersecurity talent, to include attracting and recruiting young people from education programs, colleges, et cetera, and some of the things that can be helpful to you in enhancing your ability to fill those positions that you're trying to fill in your organization. So I encourage you to take a look at that. You can find it online, and it might provide you some useful resource and some support for your programs. Bottom line is it's going to take, and this is one of those areas that at least for a while it's going to take a village, so to speak, to accomplish, and you're going to, all of us are going to need to partner to be able to get the mission done. And even back when I was managing security in the government, I had to partner. I never had enough people to do everything that I needed to do, and even if I did, there were some functions or tasks, if you will, that were better performed by a third party or somebody outside who had a deeper level of knowledge or deeper level of experience with that than I could create or retain in my own organization there at the agency. So you want to think about that and think about the work that you're trying to get done and what your CISO is looking for in terms of support, because they're not going to be able to do it all themselves, and they're going to need a lot of help to get the mission done. So with that, I'd like to open it up for questions. Jana?
All right. Thank you very much, Mac. So again, anybody at any time can submit questions using the control panel over here on the side of the GoToWebinar. Feel free to send those, and we will get through as many as we can. And so I will get started. Oh, and one question I do see a lot is, are we going to get a copy of the presentation? And yes, just as a reminder, at the end of this afternoon, you should have a copy of the presentation along with the video. So with that said, my first question that I'm going to take is, what's the number one issue causing organizations to have such challenge in hiring cybersecurity professionals?
So, the biggest issue we have right now, unfortunately, is the salary issue. When you look at the competition for these resources, it's pretty steep. The government literally announced that it has over 300,000 positions that it's trying to fill. Companies in throughout Washington and Silicon Valley and other areas are paying top dollar for folks with cybersecurity skills and certifications, and unfortunately, everybody else is competing with that. And a lot of times, what we hear from organizations is that I can't pay what these people are wanting, or we hear the contrary, and that is, I'm not willing to move there or go work there for that amount of money because I can easily go to another location and make 20 or 30% more. The fact of the matter is that right now we are in a supply and demand environment where the demand is much higher than the supply, and we need to recognize that these folks in these cybersecurity career fields oftentimes are being hit by recruiters 4 and 5 times a week. They literally have people coming at them all the time, asking them if they're ready to move, or if they are looking for the next job. And so it's not just salary is not the only thing that's important, but it's a big part of the big issue. One of the other things that's very important to these folks that they're very interested in is culture, and that's actually one of the things that healthcare has to its advantage. Is that a lot of these folks really like what they hear when they talk to folks in healthcare, and the commitment that healthcare has to the care mission, which is something that they actually want to be a part of. So culture is a big card that you can play in terms of attracting these people as well. But really, at the end of the day, it comes down to what their ability to get paid and the benefits and whatnot that organizations are providing them.
All right, thank you, Mac. One of the questions I got was asking for the link to the report that you mentioned, Mac, and I will definitely send that, just FYI. And then another question I got is, are you seeing any issues related to particular regions within the country that this is a challenge to find cybersecurity professionals?
Absolutely. It's really a challenge just about everywhere, but there are some areas where the challenge is more severe or intense, if you will. If you look at some of the areas that I mentioned, California, Silicon Valley, New York, Washington, D.C., et cetera, those areas are very difficult because there is so much competition for resources there. So it's a very rich environment where there are a lot of opportunities. So you're having to compete with everybody else that's around you. And so you have to be aware of that. And then there are other regions of the country that it's very difficult to recruit and retain because of the rural nature of some of those parts of the country and typically what salaries are in those areas. So if you're looking for a high-end CISO to come to some of the more rural parts of the United States, chances are it's going to be very difficult to recruit somebody if you're not willing to pay them what they're looking for. So it's kind of a mix of it's different in terms of the challenge, but there are challenges in a lot of parts of the country.
All right, thanks, Mac. And then just thank you to everybody that has sent us feedback via the questions and answers panel about, thank you for the ideas and suggestions. We appreciate it. And then next question I have is for you specifically, Mac. Can you provide the framework on how to address the cultural transition from building versus operating a security management program? Some roles are clearly transitionary and more staff are needed during the build process.
Yeah, absolutely. So So this was something that I had to learn very early on at managing security myself, and then later providing these services. And I'll give you one example that Marcie talked about, and that is a lot of folks are using technology to change something in their environment, whether it's segmentation or whatever, or rolling out something like Cisco ISE. And that's a perfect example, because the number of qualified Cisco ISE engineers that are out there today is very small, and those people actually demand a pretty high premium in terms of what they're willing to work for. And a lot of those individuals actually don't want to work full time because they know they can make more money working part time just doing implementations. But the number of people that you need to actually implement ISE in your environment is very different than the number of people that you need to run ISE once you have it implemented or to manage it. And I think organizations need to think about that in terms of, what do I need to actually manage this, as opposed to what do I need to actually implement this. The other, and when you look at each and every one of these tasks, which ones am I best suited to perform? Meaning, security operations is another good example of that. The ability for the individual institution to create its own SOC or create a SOC capability is very difficult and very costly. Anybody that's ever been involved in SOC operations understands that there is a tremendous amount of cost just associated with the facility and the equipment. But then the people is the biggest cost, because if you're going to run SOC operations, especially if you're going to try to manage it 24/7, or if you want to manage it 24/7, 365 days a year, that means you're going to have literally 5 people for every one role that you have in that organization, which immediately turns into a lot more people than you expected, and a lot more cost. Interestingly enough, we can take a different approach to that, whereas we can have a security operations team in our institution, and we can have security operations analysts that are looking at the same thing that third-party security operations center, or MSSP provider is providing us, and we can have a better solution at a much lower cost. And we can actually look at different tiers of MSSs that we're dealing with, in terms of not having to have a tier 1. We could have the tier 2 type folks that are more attuned to industry niches, that are more open to working collaboratively with our organization. And there are multiple models. There are MSSs that will provide support to you after hours and on weekends and holidays, while your folks man the console during the day. There are ones where your folks interact directly with the folks on that end, and they provide 24/7 for you that way. And then there's the model where they literally provide it to you completely and provide you the alerts. The point is that you can look at these different models and determine which one is best for you, and think about, is it better for me to do it in-house? Do I have the expertise? Can I recruit that expertise? Can I retain that expertise? Or is this something that is better suited to a support model, even a co-sourcing support model, or a complete outsourcing type arrangement? But think through that process, and many of the things that we do, quite frankly, we can actually get a better solution, a better support for our organization, and not have to have the headaches of trying to recruit and retain all of the talent that is necessary to provide that support.
All right, thank you, Mac. The next question I have for you is, do you feel that organizations' reputation is playing a part in hiring cybersecurity professionals? Maybe talk on the culture a little bit. That's not something that we've heard directly from folks, meaning we haven't heard any folks say, I don't want to go there because of this organization or that organization, or how they're perceived. And in fact, as I mentioned earlier, culture is actually very important to these people.
they have lots of choices about where they go and where they work and who they're willing to work for and what they're willing to do. And it's, if you think about it from a cybersecurity perspective, and I go out and talk to colleges all the time and tell these young people, this is a great time to get into this profession. It is a great time for you to go this path and have all these opportunities in front of you. And you can actually look at the organizations that you want to work for, and you can look at them not just from a salary and benefits perspective, but also look at them from a purpose perspective, meaning what is the culture of the organization? What's the purpose of the organization? What is it they do? And we have found a lot of the folks that work for us, as well as folks that we have assisted in helping to put place in healthcare organizations, they really appreciate and like being part of the care mission. They like being part of an organization that's about something, that's got a real mission that matters. And it makes them feel good to work in an organization that is contributing back to the community, if you will. So culture is a huge card for us to play in this industry.
All right, and we have about 4 minutes left. Still see a few questions trickling in, so this might have to be our last one. We might be able to get one more in after this. Any other questions, we can definitely follow up afterwards and provide any unanswered questions. Mac, do you recommend that organizations try to build their own SOC? You mentioned a minimum of 5 FTEs to cover a 24/7 center. Is this not more cost effective to outsource?
It is absolutely more cost effective. And there's several reasons why I don't recommend organizations creating their own SOC. And the first one is the overall cost associated with doing this, and all the responsibility that comes with that in terms of recruiting and retaining the talent that you're going to have working in that SOC, and recognizing that those people too are going to be extremely attractive to other folks who are providing those types of services. But the biggest reason that I don't recommend it for most organizations is that the real value in a SOC is the correlation of all the events that they're seeing and the benefit that provides, or the value that provides in early alert or recognition of threat and threat hunting. And if you are running your own SOC for your organization, unless you are a really large organization that has hundreds of locations that you're pulling in feeds from, you're only seeing a very small slice of what's going on. And what a SOC can provide, a professional SOC partner can provide to you, is the benefit of the global view of all of the customers that they manage. So they're seeing literally thousands of customers across the globe, and they're actually seeing millions of events and correlating that information and analyzing it and providing you the benefit of that analysis. And so you're not just seeing what you're seeing what everybody else is seeing as well. And so you have the benefit of perhaps early alert or early warning when something happens somewhere else first, and you get the benefit of seeing that and being able to look at your environment and determine whether or not you have that issue and can address it before that becomes a problem for you. This is one of those areas where even if you can recruit and retain the talent to run a SOC, you're still not going to be able to do it or provide the same value or the same level of visibility as a major SOC that's literally looking at thousands of people out there. What I do recommend, though, is that organizations create a security operations capability within their security team that has individuals who understand how to communicate effectively with the SOC that's supporting them, and other outside partners who are supporting them, and looking at things internally that they're seeing themselves, so that you have the ability of both that person on the ground who knows your environment, that understands what they're hearing and seeing and receiving from that third party and can translate that very quickly to, that's something I need to walk over and talk to the technical team about. That's something I need to go talk to the applications team about. And you have a much better solution ultimately at the end of the day. And it's much easier and much more manageable and much more cost effective for you internally.
All right. Thank you so much, Mac. And thank you so much, Marcie. That brings us to the hour. So any of the other questions we received through the panel we'll address offline. I want to be sure that we're respectful of everybody's time. And just a reminder, we'll send you the email later this afternoon with the presentation. It'll also include a link to a brief survey. We'd greatly appreciate it if you could fill it out. We'd love to hear your suggestions and feedback, and that way we can be sure to cover some of the topics you want to hear in the future. Mac, Marcie, any closing remarks?
No, good luck to everybody, and please support those initiatives that are out there that are trying to get young people involved in this career field, and because we need them.
All right. Thank you very much, everybody. Have a great day.